In this lesson, we're going to take some time to clean up our geometry and organize the scene. So once everything has been modeled, you want to take some time to make sure that everything has been cleaned up and organized and ready to go through the pipeline. So as a modeler, your responsibility at this point is to make sure that everything is named properly. So from the beginning, I've deliberately not named anything. And the reason for that is I just wanted to take a moment and take a lesson just to show you some quick ways to take care of this process and to really show how detrimental this can be to the pipeline. So first off, let's go up to this select by name. Let's go ahead and take a look at everything that's in our scene. And as you can see, we've got quite a list of everything that's gone through here. And you can see that we have box 604 all the way up to box 1000. We can go as high as we want here, box 1327. So just looking at all of that, that's just a lot to go through and a lot to name, and can be very detrimental to the pipeline. If someone were to pick this up, they don't know what line 007 is. And as a matter of fact, as the person who just modeled this, I don't even know what line 007 is until I actually hit OK to select that. And looking at this, it looks like it may be that line that we used for one of our connectors. So going through the modeling process, it's really important to model as you go and to rename as you go. Now, it's not saying that you can't model it all and then go back and reorganize it. Not a problem at all to do that. So to get started, let's start out with our major portions. So this is going to be the car shell. So here we can rename our objects, and we want to make sure that the description is short and descriptive. So that way someone looks at that and they know exactly what it's going to be before they even select it. So this is going to be the car shell cover, and you need to have some sort of naming convention. So normally I don't like to use spaces or camel casing whenever I'm working with models. I like to just do underscores on everything. So I'll come in and I'll say for this one, like we have multiples of this connector, I want to do something like let's say spring underscore connector underscore, and then where is it positioned on the car. So I'm going to say front and left. So I'm going to say FT for front and then up underscore LT for left. And with this, I can copy that by hitting Control C, and I can select the other one on this side and just paste that in and make the changes that I need. So instead of LT for left, I can say RT for right. Let's do the same thing here. I'm just going to select this one, Control V to paste that in. Instead of doing front, I'll say BK for back, left, and then we'll do the same thing here. So we'll paste that in, and we'll say BK and then RT. So we'll go through and we'll make the changes that we need to all of our objects. So I can say antenna here for the car. So I'm going to say car underscore antenna. And the reason that I put car in front of that is because I have another antenna that's going to be in the scene. So you want to make sure that you have some sort of naming convention that's going to be clear, and it's kind of like giving an address. So if you had an address in the United States, you would start out with the house number, and then you would go into the street name, and then it goes into the city, the state, and then even the zip code to help find the exact location of that address. So that's kind of the naming convention that I like to use. So starting out with the large object itself, it belongs to the car, and then the smaller object, which is the antenna. Just to kind of build on that, we have this piece here, which we could say is the car underscore antenna underscore ball or end, something like that, if you wanted to do so. Now, to get back to renaming our objects for this particular project, I want to go through and select the larger portions of this. So this is going to be car underscore frame. And then we have a car shell, car cover. That's all being done. We're going to say car bumper. All right. And then we have our springs. Now, the springs themselves, there are lots of pieces to that. And we have a couple of pieces in this particular scene where there are lots of pieces that make up a specific object. So what we could do is actually just group those objects together and rename them as a group, and that's always helpful too. So we don't have to rename all of these individual pieces. So let's select everything that's in the spring here, including the screws. I'm going to go ahead and select the connector pieces, okay, of the spring, and we'll do that all the way down here. And then I'm just going to group those. So like I said before, if you're using the default workspace, you can go to Group, okay, up here at the top, and then simply hit Group again. Now in this case, I'm using the enhanced menus just to kind of help you out with visual, and I'm going to use Edit, Group, and Group. So let's call this Spring, and this one I'm going to call Spring underscore FT underscore LT. But now before I do this, I'm going to go ahead and copy that name. So I'm just hitting Control C, and then I'll hit OK. And then let's select these objects for this spring. Make sure that we get all of those, including the connector pieces and the washers. And let's group those. So Edit, Group, and I'm going to hit Control V to rename that, and it's going to be front underscore RT for right. Okay. Let's do the same thing for the rear spring. Okay, so select all of those pieces. And there we go. Now remember, before you finish this up, I didn't apply the Turbo Smooth to these objects. I'm just assuming that you're going to do that in your own project. So if you want to add Turbo Smooth to this, you probably want to do that before you start grouping these objects together. Okay, and start cleaning this up. You want to make sure that it's completely finished in that sense. So we don't really need to go through the Turbo Smooth of this. So with that, let's go ahead and group that. Edit, Group, and we'll call this the spring, and we're going to say BK underscore LT. So I'm going to say BK, and then I'm going to copy this one, so Control C, and then we'll do the same thing over here. So on this side, let's select all of those. I was making sure that my reference images are out of the scene. Couldn't remember for that. And we got the spring, and we've got all of the elements that are on the inside of that spring, including the screw. And then Edit, Group, and then we'll group that together. I'm going to hit Control V, and we're going to say RT for this one. There we go. So there's our frame. We have our wheels. So now we need to group all of those together. Now we have all these tire treads that we have all grouped together, and I'm going to select all of those except everything except for the wheel portion. I want the treads only. Okay, so with all of those selected, let's group those. So I'm creating what's called a nested group. So I'm going to call these tire underscore treads, and I'm going to say underscore FT underscore RT, and then let's select everything in the wheel, okay, and the assembly, and let's group all of that. So Edit, Group, and we're going to say wheel underscore FT underscore LT. So hit Control C to copy that, and let's do the same thing on this side. Okay, now we probably should have grouped all the tire treads on this side together. Okay, so we'll have to redo that here. So let's just group all of those, and let's call this tire underscore treads underscore FT underscore RT. And we can always copy the name here, so Control C, and then I'm going to go back here and group all of those. Okay, so let's deselect everything that we don't want grouped to that. So that should be all of those, and minus that. So edit group. And I'm just going to paste that in. We're going to say bk_rt. And then finally, along the back here, we're going to select everything there. Okay, so all the treads there. And the tire. And then we'll group that. Control V, and I'm going to say BKLT. Okay, so you can definitely see the process that we're using to group all of these objects together and to rename them and to do exactly what we're supposed to do before we pass this off through the pipeline. Now, at this point, we could go ahead and we could group all of these together, and once you're finally finished with everything, and once you've got everything organized and renamed and set up, you'll want to do just one quick check through your list here. And so your list should get considerably smaller as you go down through this. And if you see anything that says something like cylinder or box and you just don't know what it is, go ahead and select it and rename it to what it should be. And again, use one of those descriptive names. And then finally, once you have everything named, you could come through and select everything that's in the car, and you could actually group that into its own group and call it car. Okay, and then do the same thing for the remote. So in between lessons, spend some time renaming your objects and organizing those properly, just using groups. And in the next lesson, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of get a little bit of a bonus to the modeling. We're going to learn how to create and assign basic materials, and then from there I'm also going to show you some UV basics that you can apply textures to this object as well. So I'll see you then.